Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Legend of Korra Book 3 Change episode commentary. This one's going to be the commentary for Book 3 Change Episode 7, Original Airbenders, K307. So to sync up your copy of the episode with this commentary track, all you need to do is have your episode ready to play, including the intro of the show, basically, the opening fire, the Kyoshi, earth, fire, air, water bit. And basically, I'm going to stop speaking in a moment, and then when I come back after that pause, you hit play and it'll be synced up with my commentary track. I'll be pressing play on my copy of the episode at the same time. So I'm going to stop speaking now. When you hear me speak again, hit play. Okay, so here we are with Original Airbenders, Episode 7, the middle episode of Book 3 Change. And overall, this is an episode I do really like, but it's also an episode that I feel highlights what is overall one of the kind of bigger problems I have with this book, in that it really is a good example of overall what this book's main problem is, that being that it tries to do a lot of things and doesn't quite have enough time to do all of those things. There's a lot of different plots going on in just this episode, and it ends up having to be the episode where basically all of the Airbender character development happens, because the rest of the episodes have to focus on bringing in the main plot, because we still don't know what the Red Lotus are up to at this point in the series, giving us more information on them, where Korra is, and all this other sort of stuff. And so, this episode has to do everything with that. And, I still like it because I love Airbender culture and I love hearing all about this Airbender stuff. And what it actually does deal with is interesting. Because obviously you have this plot here of is Tenzin training them in the correct way, and it kind of links into some of Tenzin's Book 1 issues, in that was he training Korra in the right way, and was he being too traditional, was he not being modern enough? And you kind of see that come out here a little bit, in that with Korra, he refused to kind of bring in pro-bending stuff, and ultimately that was a key thing to her actually developing. While here, it's more of like, this is a very traditional culture, but it's in a more modern time, and so he has to kind of adapt it. Like, he's doing stuff like here, showing off with his Sky Bison, and then he comes down and says, no, you can't go anywhere near Sky Bison, it's too dangerous, there's not enough ones for all of you, you can't even attempt to train with this. He's kind of keeping back the stuff they want to do and just boring them with some of the more kind of specifics. Like, these are people who are new to this culture, and like, they've agreed to do it, but you don't overload them with the kind of, I suppose, really traditional kind of stuff early on. You kind of get them into it with, helping them become more kind of adept at airbending, and then start to gradually bring in some of that culture stuff. Because, there are air acolytes who love the airbender culture, and you kind of see that. But it's interesting. Then you have the kind of Jinora basically becoming a master plot, but Tenzin still treating her like a kid. But then at the same time, like, you think, okay, this is just a character-focused episode, but wait, why is this Sky Bison kind of hunter plot coming into play? Like, it's a really weird episode in that sense, in that this episode would completely work just being character-focused, and Tenzin learning to train people the right way, getting help from Bumi, dealing with the stuff with Jinora. But then they bring in this action plot for some reason that works to bring the Airbenders together and overall, but it's still a lot of stuff to do in an episode. And it's interesting as well that this is the only scene we get of Korra in the whole episode. But yeah, it's just nice that kind of Tenzin knows about Lin's issues with Sue. And yeah, like the opal thing, I'll talk about more in a minute after this scene. There's definitely some comments I have to make about that. But this is a really cool scene actually here with Korra. You really see how kind of mature she has become. The development from book 2 really kind of shows you how wise she is. Tenzin's struggling with training the Airbenders, and she just gives some really good advice. It really shows that she knows the people around her very well. That, hey, look, Bumi has experience like leading people. Why not help him? Why not bring him in to help? Why not let Jinora, Milo, Iki help? They're really interested in doing that because they've been training for a lot longer than all of these people. Even though they're younger, they know a lot more. They'll bring some fun into things. Use all of these people. It is really wise advice from Korra here. But yeah, I do like the kind of that Kai ends up being this kind of influence on Jinora in this episode, showing that look, you are extremely powerful. Like in many ways, you're more powerful than your father, even though you're a little bit less you're more inexperienced than he is, and you really see the relationship kind of blossom here. One of the only times we see spirits in the episode, just here, and it brings in the kind of baby bison plot. And I would really like it if I would hope that these three bison that we see here eventually become, Jinora, Kai, and Opal's bisons. I think that would be really cool. So obviously Kai's bison is Lefty, and I would assume that this is Lefty. I think that's confirmed. And I assume maybe one of the other ones is Janora's bison Pepper, and then one of the other ones is perhaps Opal's bison Juicy. So that would be really cool if that's who they were. And then this isn't confirmed, but like, is this kind of mother bison here with the missing horn? Is that Korra's bison that she used in book 2 or not? It's interesting. But I suppose I'll bring up the Opal thing right now. In my opinion, this episode should have happened after Opal had joined everyone at the Northern Air Temple, because Opal really isn't up to much for the rest of the book. We see her once, she's captured, and she doesn't really do anything. She gets some training off screen. I think this episode would have been so much better if you had her as this kind of new addition to the group. You see her kind of meet Tenzin, and him kind of reacting or training, someone who it'd be interesting, like, does Tenzin know Sue all that well, or does he know Opal at all? And just see her getting her first kind of stuff with airbending training. See how she reacts to kind of sort of meeting like Kai for the first time and something like that. That would be interesting. And because she doesn't get up to a lot in the rest of the book, I feel this would have been the episode to have something with her. But at the same time, as I said, this episode already has so much stuff going on. It would have completely overloaded the episode. But I do like that we get kind of a decent amount of Boomy in this episode. Like, Kaya after book 2 doesn't really do a lot. Like, but this book is really her last kind of time to do anything, and it's kind of the same for Boomy as well. He's involved in some of the fighting a little bit in book 4, but primarily this is his last big thing. And interesting way they went with Tenzin in this episode is that he takes the become more of a military commander type character really heavily to heart, and really grinds them into the ground, like, and makes it more hassle than it's kind of worth for everyone else. And they're struggling, like, being away from just being in such a unique situation here. Like, they're adapting to being part of this new culture, being around all of these new people, adapting to these new powers they have, and then their kind of master is kind of not really training them in the most effective way and stuff like that. And Tenzin is really frustrating a lot of people, including Boomy, including Jinora, Kai, and everyone else. And I love how there's a scene later on with Pema that really helps him to see the problems and kind of gives him perspective, and you can really see what that relationship is like here, the Pema-Tenzin relationship, which we haven't really got a lot of, but you see what she kind of adds to Tenzin, I suppose. I do like seeing a lot of this airbending training stuff. It's just really cool. It's one of the, for me, it's definitely the coolest culture kind of stuff we get in Avatar, in terms of it's one of the more unique bending arts and how it relates to the culture and stuff like that. About balance, the kind of spiral movement, circle walking, and how this episode is ultimately the kind of setup for the Airbenders involved in the finale, and that they come together, they create the big tornado, with the help of Jinora leading them, and they kind of help save Korra. And that was an interesting scene there, just seeing Tenzin Jinora question Tenzin, like, are you sure you're not pushing them too hard? And he's like, no, not yet. Duh, obviously. I do like that you did get introduced to a few of these characters, and you see Dahl here get shaved, and it was like, no, it's kind of not mandatory. You didn't need to get shaved, but ultimately it's a kind of plot device, and that it helps him in the fight later on. It's really it's a kind of funny side plot, and how ultimately what brings them together is kind of more of the bending, the action, the kind of camaraderie kind of side of the being together with everyone that brings them together as a group. And here's the real questioning. Maybe we should give them a break. And he just brushes her off, like, I have this under control. And Kai, the whole episode, has been saying to her, you should be more involved, like, you're nearly a master airbender. Why don't you have your tattoos? And she just really, like, sees this as like an insult, like, I'm nearly your equal, I'm better than you in some ways. You need to treat me better, let me lead in certain ways. And it works. Like, it's a nice character development between Tenzin and his daughter. And I like that we see that Kai is the kind of best of all the new recruits, but because he's kind of so much better than the other ones, it's a bit of a struggle. And then Boomy is he's the oldest of the recruits, and kind of having to do this kind of boot camp training. He's long past that with his involvement in the United Forces, but he's struggling, and he just gets overly frustrated here, when in fact he later on becomes the kind of key leader figure for the group in terms of uniting them to save the Bison and Jinora and Kai. And it's interesting that he says, like, I never wanted to be an airbender, when in like previous books, like, he's always been like, I have to prove myself even though I'm not an airbender, and he's been happy to be an airbender now, but it's just very frustrating here. And then they bring up all of these things that, like, he doesn't quite understand, and it's been set up this whole book that he just expects these people to perfectly adapt to this kind of culture, which to normal people is a little bit crazy, all the stuff they have to go through. And then here's one of the final straws, like, since I'm a master now, can I get my tattoos? And then she brings up the Kai thing, and Kai's gonna be in a little bit of trouble. And I like that she stands up for herself here as well. And she just kind of storms off because, like, he kind of isn't appreciating how strong and powerful she actually is, and like everything she says there is true. She's just a bit young, a little bit inexperienced, but overall she's powerful and could be the leader someday. But you definitely understand. But again, it's one of these things about Book 3 in that a lot of the strengths of the season are with these almost side plot stories. Like, this episode in the grand scheme of the whole story has very little to do with the overall plot. Just like the Beifong arc had very little to do with the whole plot, and the Earth Queen plot in the kind of episode 3 and 4 had very little to do with the overall plot. So it's interesting that, like, overall these are good arcs. They work together, but they don't bring Book 3 together as a really solid, contained Book 3 story. They work to add to the universe over the 4 books of Korra, but interesting, nonetheless. Yeah, this is pretty interesting. Obviously, have our Bison Hunter capture Kai and Jinora, in addition to all of the baby bison and stuff like that. And here's the scene I was referring to earlier on, the Tenzin and Pema scene. It's really nice. He's really stressed out. And I like how she just refers to her own experience in becoming an Air Acolyte, in that she wanted to be part of this culture, And as much as she really wanted to and was excited, it was hard to adapt from normal life to this kind of different and unique culture. Everything was a kind of struggle to just adapt to, and she was scared and lonely being around like people she didn't know and hadn't become friends with just yet. They're not together as a group just yet, treating each other as kind of family right now. I like how he kind of notes that. Like now I know how Korra feels when I talk to her. This is Vice. But I think there's a funny line coming up here, like that they say Janora's out with her boyfriend Kai, and he's like, "What? When did this happen?" That's just really cool, just adding to that relationship. It's he knows who it is. It's hilarious. Um, but yeah. And yeah, it's sort of about the Earth Queen and the people high up in the Earth Kingdom like that. And then the reference to Bosco, the fact that she ate Bosco the bear. If that's true, like that's crazy. It just makes you hate her all the more. And it's almost set up for the fact that she's going to get killed later on. That she killed such a fan beloved character like that. But yeah, interesting. Like they put a limit on Janora's power. She can't be so cramped when she performs her technique, but she can attract spirits and stuff like that. This is something that Tenzin could never do. Never communicate with the spirits in such a way and cleverly kind of manufacture the way to get them out of the situation. And it's also something that Boomy has that Tenzin doesn't. That he's also pretty good with the spirits and has become friends with Boomju here. And he's the one who ends up organizing the rescue attempt. It's a really solid episode in that sense. It's just there is a lot going on, as I said before. Everything's not quite getting the time it fully needs. Like this episode feels like it should have been a two-parter almost. That you have the Bison plot come more into play in the second episode. Maybe it's a cliffhanger to the first episode, Jinora Kai getting captured. If Korra had more episodes overall, this episode is a prime candidate to become probably two. And here we go, Boomy stepping up as the leader. And because he is one of the trainees like them, they do follow him, and that's interesting. And they're all not ready. They're all very not trained very much, obviously, and they're all not ready to get in a fight. But Boomy gives them this really nice inspirational speech. And like he just brings them together. We're Airbenders now. We've got to stick together. There's not that many of us, and we have to save our comrades here. Jinora Kai and the Bison. And then Milo comes in to just sum it all up in just a little sentence, leaving no Airbender behind. Kai with his thief lockpicking skills. Him and Lefty, I assume, get out. And I would like to assume that the Jinora in there with the Bison, that's Pepper. And then one of the ones at the bottom, as I said, is Juicy. That would be a really cool reveal, but they haven't confirmed it yet. So, yeah, here's the attack. We got our action scene, and they're all Earthbenders, it's revealed, so that's interesting. And yeah, they're not massively skilled, but I love this scene here. Just, yeah, that's why most Airbenders are bald, because they can sense stuff like that in the air much easier with the bald head. Great dodge, he gets the move, and they start bragging about it later on, and we assume more and more people become bald. And it's interesting that Milo goes from being bald to in book 4 actually having some hair. But they're obviously become less and less strict with some of the rules that you don't have to be bald and stuff like that. Yeah, just like Kai going after Janora, and I suppose it's kind of set up for kind of what happens later. Like he does something risky. This time it works out. Nearly gets himself killed later on in the book, though. And here comes Tenzin with Oogie. And obviously the Mother Skybastion is going to arrive as well. Some really cool moves from Kai here, just showing how he's basically a prodigy airbender. Like he's that good, prodigal. And yet double bison action. Three of them. Like it's just so cool to see so many sky bison. Like, just that shot right there with like four of them like on screen at once is amazing. And there's like three little sky bison in the cage. And there's a guy wearing sky bison fur. This is a cool scene as well, actually. Just Kai kind of has a little bit of a kind of angry moment here, where he's never been this intense and angry before, and he kind of just goes a little bit overboard in the Sky Bison Rustler leader, and Tenzin has to stop him, but appreciates that the form and how talented Kai is, and how much he went out of the way to save people and cares about the bison and the culture. It's a nice scene, really good. I like that he didn't just scold Kai for going overboard. And then Bumi's confident, happy to be an airbender, contrast to what he said earlier on, that he never wants to be an airbender. They're now in cages. There's the bragging scene I talked about. And then complimenting Bumi on what Korra said in the first place, your leadership and stuff like that. But instead, he never actually took Korra's advice in the first place. She said to let the kids help and let Bumi help. He just got advice from Bumi instead of actually getting Bumi to, just tell Bumi, you're going to be a co-leader with me. Help me out. And then here's the whole title, Original Airbenders. The apology. And he realizes, and I like this, a little bit of joke about the tattoos, and he's finding hard to believe, but maybe. And she gets him at the end of the book, and it's a nice character arc for her, and in my opinion, she is the character who develops the most in book 3. And it's just such a cute scene, seeing the Sky Bison kind of fly for the first time. It just randomly happens. They have no idea what's going on initially, but their instincts kick in and they quickly adapt to it. And as I said, I hope those three are the three bison that our kind of main new Airbender characters get. But yeah, that's been the audio commentary for Original Airbenders. As I said, really solid episode. I like it overall because I love Airbender culture and stuff like that. It's my favorite element. I think it ends up being an important episode to just give Tenzin a little arc in the book, give Janora, Kai some action, but if this book had a little bit more time, if the plots got more time overall, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more on this. See Opal actually get her training. I thought that was a big missed opportunity in this book, and that Opal is a really cool new character introduced, and we only see her kind of be trained kind of off screen, and then the next time we see her as an air nomad, she's basically captured pretty soon after. So it's I wish that was maybe changed, but overall I really like Original Airbenders. I think it's a really good episode. But yep, that's been the commentary. Thanks for listening, and bye.